Welcome to the IllumiNewsroom. Today has been a day for content creators to reveal cards. I was not so blessed this time around, so this video is up a little later to give the fortunate time to shine. I will be linking to all the original sources in the doobly-doo. Please do check them out. Starting off in the early morning were Hobbies and Happiness, whose stream I've been on a couple times, who got to show off two new items. First is Ursula's Cauldron, a 2-ink uninkable amethyst item with Exert. Look at the top two cards of your deck, put one on top and the other on the bottom. Being able to do this every turn is very, very nice. It's essentially giving you a variation on Yzma's quest ability without tying it to an easily challenged character. This will give you a lot more control over what you draw with Amethyst's plentiful draw tools, giving more consistency to your deck. They also got to show off Poisoned Apple, a 3-ink uninkable ruby item, the first we've seen. With pay 1 ink and banish this to exert a character, or if it's a princess, banish her instead. I am amused how this game uses pronouns. Anyway, 4 ink just to exert something is a little steep, but in Ruby you might be glad to pay it to give Heroic Outlaw or Mulan a good target. You can also get around the problem of not being able to challenge newly played characters. Still, the better use of this card is in killing princesses, as this becomes a cheaper Dragonfire. So if princesses ever start dominating the meta, this will be an obvious tech card to slot in to deal with them. Just remember, you don't have to use it right away. You can play this turn 3 and then wait for an opportune moment to use it later for only 1 ink, as long as Beast Hardheaded doesn't come and ruin your day. Next up was the Inkwell, who got to show a new Emerald song, Sudden Chill. At 2 ink, it forces each opponent to discard a card. Nasty! Especially since Flynn Rider can sing this. I am not at all looking forward to facing Emerald discard tribal decks, but I might dabble in one to see how awful I can be to my opponent. The real awfulness is how much this can wreck your ink curve, as you have to choose between keeping cards you want to play and cards you need to ink. He also got to reveal LeFou Instigator. He's a Ruby 2/2/1 lore for 2 with when you play him, you may ready a character who can't quest this turn. He's Fan the Flames in a body. Definitely an include with the sort of decks that already want to include that action. The main takeaway for me here is 2 LeFous mean we're almost certainly getting a second Gaston, who at this point can only reasonably take the spot between the Ariels and Goofy Musketeer in Amber. After him was B Squared, who got to reveal a brand new Ruby Captain Hook, Ruthless Pirate, a 5/5 2 lore for 7 ink, uninkable, with Rush, and when this character is exerted, opposing evasive characters have Reckless. Some pretty sweet anti-evasive tech, though he is quite expensive. I think he'll only really see play in a Sapphire Ruby ramp deck, but he should be pretty decent that, even if he's just a 5/5 with Rush. Speaking of Rush, we also get Cut to the Chase, a Ruby action for 2 ink that gives a character Rush this turn. So if you're willing to pay an extra 2, you can have your Mulan or Heroic Outlaw swing out immediately. Probably better for Mulan, as you can give Heroic Outlaw pseudo Rush by shifting him. Again, probably better in a deck with ramp. In between content creator reveals, Team Lorcana gave us Tangle, another Ruby action for 2 ink that makes everyone else lose 1 lore. This seems a little on the weak side. Opponents losing lore is roughly equivalent to life gain in Magic the Gathering, and this seems very low impact for what it costs. I could only really see playing this in a deck that is already including all of the other lore loss cards, but I'm glad to see this design space being explored. Next from Unplayable, we got yet another Ruby action. He's got a sword! For 1 ink, gives a character +2 strength this turn. Essentially Vicious Betrayal without the upswing for villains. This may seem not as good, but Emerald is mostly a color that wants to quest and be challenged, whereas Ruby wants to be challenging and banishing, and this will be very helpful in making sure Mulan or Heroic Outlaw close out the deal without needing to sacrifice other characters. They also revealed Sword of Truth, which is a Ruby item, not steel as I predicted, for 4 ink, uninkable, and you can banish it to banish a villain. Again, this seems to be a meta tech card. If your opponent has no villains, this is useless, unlike Poisoned Apple, which can at least exert someone. But against villains, this is again just a better Dragonfire. Time will tell how good these one-shot Ruby banishing items are. Then we got another interstitial from Team Lorcana, and holy hair is it a good one. Belle Strange But Special is a Sapphire 2/4/1 lore for 4, with you may ink an additional card each turn, and if you have at least 10 ink, she gets +4 lore! This is insane! She lets you ramp, and if she sticks around, you're questing for 5 lore. This is a build-around character if I've ever seen one, and I absolutely want to make a Ruby Sapphire deck with her as the payload. To help deal with such power, we also got Mother Gothel, Selfish Manipulator, an Emerald 3/6/2 lore for 6, with while this character is exerted, opposing characters can't quest. Exquisite! This further solidifies my desire to have an Amber Emerald Villains deck with a couple bodyguards in to make sure John Silver and Mother Gothel don't immediately die. Finally, to wrap up the night, the Illumiteers got to reveal our first Sapphire cards in a while. Work together is a Sapphire action for 1 that gives a character support for the turn. Essentially the action version of Scepter of Arendelle. I don't think I would ever run this over the Scepter unless I really wanted 8 copies of the effect. Not too bad for draft though. More exciting was Jasmine, Queen of Agrabah, the second Floodborn for Sapphire. I was honestly expecting Maleficent or Moana to be the other Floodborn. It's interesting that it's looking like 3 of the first set's Floodborn will be from Aladdin if Genie gets one like it's looking like he will. Queen Jasmine is a 2/5/2 lore for 5 with Shift 3, and when she's played or quests, heals all your characters for 2. All of them! This is absolutely nuts, letting you get in favorable challenges and then heal back up afterwards. I'm assuming there will be one other Jasmine in Sapphire just to give another shift target for the Floodborn.